Hi, everyone. I'm Peter Giannetti of the International Housewares Association and Homepage News. And welcome to another episode of the IHA webinar series. With AI on the minds of everyone in the home and housewares business this holiday season, today's webinar will examine the surging development of agentic commerce. I'm joined today by Don Unser, the President of Thought Leadership for Circana, Joe Derochowski, Vice President and Home Industry Advisor for Circana, and Scot Wingo, the founder and CEO of ReFiBuy. As agentic commerce gains momentum across both the retail industry and consumer markets, its ultimate structure remains an open question. Early signals in the market suggest multiple possible outcomes, from shifts in consumer behavior to new operational models. Which partnerships will emerge as critical drivers of agentic commerce success? Which business models are poised to thrive in this evolving landscape? And which ones face the greatest risk of disruption? Understanding these dynamics will be essential for businesses seeking to adapt and lead in this transformative era. In today's webinar, Don Unser and Joe Derochowski of market research and analytics company Circana will be joined by agentic commerce optimization expert Scot Wingo of ReFiBuy to provide an insider's overview of agentic commerce and its potential for the home and housewares business. The session will highlight best practices to begin implementing now to stake your position in this fast-evolving and transformative AI sector. We'll leave some time at the conclusion of the session for some questions. You can submit questions using the Q&A function at the bottom of your Zoom window. Today's presentation also is being recorded and will be shared with attendees in the coming days. So let's get started. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Circana's Don Unser for a few opening remarks. Don?
Very good. Thank you, Peter. Appreciate it. So if you all have been watching any of the content that Circana has been putting out, or I've been putting out in the last 6 months, I've been highlighting two major structural changes to retail, not only for the science of retailing on how retail comes to market, but also for the consumer. And those two are social commerce and what we're here to talk about today, which is agentic commerce. So I've been following some very, very smart people and been a thought partner with these folks for the last 6 months plus. And one of those folks is Scot Wingo. Scot is a friend and colleague for many years. We go back to when e-commerce was coming on the scene and still growing, and Walmart was creating their catalog, and Scot was the CEO of Channel Advisors. Scot is very much an expert in e-commerce. If you haven't caught his podcast that he does with Jason Rosenberg, it's excellent, very detailed, a lot of fun, and that's a fun one to catch. But Scot has been the one that has been synthesizing all the news coming out on agentic and boiling it down to just the important facts that we need to run the businesses. And for Joe and I, for market research, and for you all as brands or retailers. So with that, I'm very, very excited to have Scot Wingo here to talk about what he's seeing in agentic commerce and what you all should be thinking about as you manage your business as we go into this period, because it is going to be a wild ride. Thanks for coming, Scot. Let me turn it over to you.
Yeah. Thanks, Don. And I want to thank the International Housewares Association team for having me on, and also the team there. And thanks, Joe, for having me on. I really appreciate it. So let's jump in. This has been really interesting following this. I started a company in this space, started thinking about starting a company, I guess I should say, in November of last year. And I've been in e-commerce for 30 years. And usually e-commerce kind of goes in these 4 to 5 year kind of cycles. So much has happened in the last year that basically updating my slides is a full-time job. I was telling Don in the green room, new data came out this weekend, and we're always looking for fresh data. So this is some of this data you may have seen before, but a lot of it is actually pretty brand new because we have a lot of breaking news in this world of agentic commerce. So, as Don said, I've been at e-commerce here for a while. I'm a serial entrepreneur in the Research Triangle Park area of North Carolina, and I've started 5 companies. The one most commonly known in this world is Channel Advisor, which is now called Rhythm. I'm not responsible for that brand Rhythm. I like to call it Channel Advisor. That's the company I founded 2001 to 2022, and then it was bought by private equity. We do have 2 thought leadership pieces I put out there for your listening and viewing enjoyment. One is a audio podcast with Jason called The Jason and Scot Show. We cover big e-commerce trends there, and then started a new one just this year called Retail Agentic, which is the word retail and agentic smushed together. That's a Substack that's free, so you get at least once a week, frequently 2 to 3 times a week updates. We try to like really filter it and give you the best stuff, but there's so much coming out, it's hard to limit it to just once a week. And then we have a sister podcast which has got an audio and video format that goes along with that, where we interview some of the big folks in this agentic commerce space. We just had the first person I've heard of with an agentic commerce title, the head of agentic commerce at PayPal, and we have a lot of payments people on, and we had the person from ChatGPT that put out their big paper around how people are using ChatGPT. So if you like this topic and want to go deeper, we have near infinite resources there for you to go deep on. I like to kind of level set and say, what is this agentic commerce? This is one of these things I ended up getting pulled into several online debates on LinkedIn, which is always a dubious thing to get into, but I waded in there. And I found everyone has a different definition. So I like to kind of start at that and just share my definition. When I'm talking about agentic commerce, the best experience, and I'm going to give you a live demo of this, is inside of ChatGPT, and I call it the inline experience. So ChatGPT has all these different things going on, which is a little chaotic. They have something called agent mode. That's not what I'm talking about. They also have apps that you can have in ChatGPT, and that's an interesting experience too. But I think the best, the holy grail experience is the inline experience. And what that does is, I like to think of these funnels. This will come up a lot. And in fact, our company name, ReFiBuy, is the shortening of the funnel of research, find, and buy. So it's the first 2 letters of each of those. But the way this works on ChatGPT over on the right is someone's having a conversation with the chatbot. And here I'm showing a pretty short-circuited funnel. So I'm basically saying, I'm looking to buy a product. Most of the conversations, as the data indicates, people are talking about something else, and they end up getting they come in sideways into the e-commerce funnel. And I'll show you an example of that live. But this one, just to kind of illustrate, I went right to the meat of the problem. I'm looking for a cool beauty product for my 14-year-old niece. It shows me products from this company, Glossier, in the beauty category. And then I'm able to check out right there and complete that transaction. And what this is doing is it's kind of like a marketplace, what we'd call a marketplace. Amazon has a marketplace, eBay's a marketplace, and now there's lots of other marketplaces out there. But this is a marketplace that lives inside of an AI chat. So what it does is it really compresses the funnel. And we think this is having really big impact for everyone, and I'm going to walk you through that. That's my definition of agentic commerce. Some people have this in the payments world and other areas. They have this view that the computer just goes and buys everything for the consumer. I view it more as like a buying GPS. So it kind of helps you along the way to the extent you want it to help. Some people may use it to get general ideas, and then they want to go to a store and buy something, which is fine. Or you may want to go do your own research and then say, just check and say, hey, ChatGPT, can you help me make sure I'm getting a good price on this product? Or can you find something closer to me that's available in a day or two? So I kind of view it as an assistant. Other people have this view that it has to do everything. And I think we'll get there, and I'll talk you through that, but we're not quite there yet. So this is my definition when I'm talking about agentic commerce. Now, this same experience is available on Google now. Microsoft offering, which is Copilot, and Perplexity are the big 4, and I'll walk you through where everyone is in that world. So let's start at the very top of this. Our world is, anyone that is involved in commerce of any flavor, be it analog or digital, it all starts at consumer behavior. This is where I always like to anchor when I give these presentations. What's going on with the consumer? Circana obviously knows a lot about this, and I'm always jealous of the data they have. This is data from other third parties that are willing to share it. And Circana, because you guys are a client, you get access to the good stuff. So this is this is a really good chart from an investor, and it basically shows you how fast ChatGPT is going to 1 billion users. And what's fun is I think this is from July. There's rumors that they're already at over 1 billion. Now they're playing this close to the vest because they have a lot of competition. But some of these name brand channels we think about, like TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram, it took them basically 7 to 8 years to get to 1 billion users this is looking at monthly active users. There's daily, monthly, and weekly. So, and then you have daily is the least frequent. It's very hard to get something to do daily. And then you have weekly and then monthly. Monthly is usually the biggest number. Since this came out, ChatGPT has disclosed they are at 800 weekly. So that means they're easily at 1 to 1.2 billion monthly. But look at the vertical nature of this line. And this stops at July is when we have data. And I'm very excited to see some more data come out on this as they disclose it. There's third-party data like SimilarWeb and all, but it's not as good as this because they have an app. They have 6 different ways you can kind of get into ChatGPT, and it's hard to measure that unless the company discloses it. Probably one of the better sources of traffic data out there is called SimilarWeb. Basically they look at the category on the overall left, and they basically say there's about 275 and now 300 million daily active users using one of these chat systems, a Gen AI chatbot. And what's fun about this space, again, is all of us are trained. When you see a bar chart like this, I kind of think maybe that's quarterly or years, right? No, this is basically every 2 weeks. So this is how fast this world's going. We look at charts in 2-week chunks because it's just going so crazy that months just like take these huge steps up. So this only goes back to June, and you can see how much it's grown. That's another, let's call it 50 million basically daily active users have been added since the early June. Now, what's interesting in there is you can tell that blue is ChatGPT, the bottom blue, and they're pretty dominant, but you can see they've slowed down a little bit. And what's happening is in the early days, they were just clobbering Google, and they were taking share from Google, and I'll show you some charts on that. So traditional Google is what we would call now a traditional search engine, or kind of the old way people found information. And a lot of people call when ChatGPT added a web search capability. Perplexity was the first to do it. ChatGPT was a fast follower, and now everyone has this capability. It was this beautiful combination, and it took a really cool system that had a lot of this knowledge, but it was dated, and married it with real-time web index to give you an answer engine. So instead of going to Google and opening up all these links to try to get to the information you want and sorting through it yourself and having to go through a lot of advertisements, now you have 100% ad-free experience today. I think there are going to be ads, and we can talk about that in Q&A if you want. And you now get your answer very quickly. So that's obviously a better experience than a search engine. Search makes you do all the work. Answer engine does the work for you. So this is what's driving this adoption. Google has countered that with their system called Gemini. Gemini has 3 flavors, and this is confusing, but if you do a traditional Google search, up at the top now, about 80% of the time, you will see what's called an AI overview. And that's them giving you an answer at the top. And they're basically doing that in defense so that you don't go to ChatGPT to get your answer. So that's an AI overview. And that's embedded in the old traditional Google experience. Number 2, if you go to traditional Google, google.com, you'll see over on the right-hand side in this little animated color box, AI mode. If you shift that, it now flips Google into kind of the future version of Google, which is AI powered by their model called Gemini. The third option is you can go directly to Gemini, gemini.google.com, and that's where you get a pure ChatGPT-like experience. So that's kind of confusing, but in the industry, we kind of coalesce all 3 of those together and call it Gemini. So you can see that the orange bar there went from very small to relatively big. Over on the right side, you can see this is just looking at the percentages. So you're kind of holding the overall growth, and you're just looking at kind of pie charts per every 3 months or a month ago, 3 months ago, and 6 months ago buckets. And you can see that ChatGPT has lost share, even though their traffic has gained, they're losing share to Gemini. So we like to say the 800-pound gorilla in this space, which is Google, is very much awake, and they are pouring massive resources into this. On top of that, and when we say massive, these companies are building $500 billion a year in data centers, and the underlying GPUs, which is the chip type that powers these engines. We've never seen a build out like this in the history of anything that's happened. You can take all that went into software as a service, the dark fiber and during the internet build out, all that is minuscule compared to the investment going into this. And what's pulling it along is the massive demand from users. In fact, they're having to throttle. This would grow a lot faster if they could do that build out faster. So every one of these companies on the right, be it OpenAI, Gemini, Grok, Perplexity, all these companies are saying we could go much faster if we had more throughput and more systems. So that is going to come online, and we're going to see this really accelerate again. Traditional search is the biggest loser. So consumers are changing very rapidly from traditional search, what I'll call search engine, to answer engine. On the left, you see the share taken from traditional search. One calculation is 8%. One of the biggest resources in the world of SEO, search engine optimization, which is kind of the old way of optimizing for this stuff, is called SEMrush. You have SEO, which is the free organic traffic, and SEM is the paid version. So they're kind of synonymous. They predict by 2028 that the lines are going to cross, and traditional search will basically be the minority, and the answer engines will be the majority. I actually think this is a 6-month-old forecast. I would not be surprised if they don't pull this into 2027, because we're seeing Google self-cannibalize. Google's basically saying, if we're going to lose, let's lose to ourselves instead of just kind of does everyone remember when Amazon shocked the world and came out with a Kindle, and you're like, why would the world's biggest bookstore come out with an ebook reader? They basically did the calculus and said, we could either give this to someone that's not us, or we could own it. And if it's going to happen, we might as well self-cannibalize. It seems like Google has crossed that chasm. We call it the innovator's dilemma in business strategy. They're squarely in this innovator's dilemma, and one of the best ways out of it is to just like hold your nose, jump into the deep end, and get out on the other side. It seems like they were holding back kind of in the first quarter and maybe a little bit of the second quarter. But now Sergey Brin has come back. He's actively writing code. He's on the Gemini team. And so they're back to founder mode, and things are going crazy at Google. So they're self-killing traditional Google in promoting the Gemini assortment of offerings. A lot of you may have seen this. I encourage you to go to anyone in your company that is in charge of looking at your Google traffic. Most of the customers I talk to that are retailers are seeing their traffic down at least 20% year over year. And then a lot of brands are seeing it down. It really depends on the category. I would say for your category, you're in the early adopting phase. We'll talk about that here in a second. And I think that you're going to find that at least 10% of your Google traffic has kind of mysteriously disappeared. And what's happening is it's getting soaked up into these answer engines. The problem is you don't get the traffic anymore. So it's this whole new paradigm of we now have things happening, kind of outside of your website, and you're going to have to influence them in new ways. And I'll talk about that. The other really interesting consumer behavior thing here is in survey after survey, people trust AI more than a friend, more than your website, a brand's website, more than the search engine, and more than social media. So social media is still very influential in the influencers, but everyone knows they're being paid, and they're kind of like, you're being paid. They view the ChatGPT and others like it have occupied this very hollowed high ground of being a trusted authority, that they give a very neutral recommendation, and they look at all the factors and they tell you the pros and cons. You don't get that from the search engine that's basically saying, this company paid me $8 a click. I'm going to put that company everywhere on here. Increasingly, Amazon is getting knocked for this, because if you've shopped at Amazon lately, it is hard to find a non-sponsored product these days. It occupies, I've done calculations for dog treats, some housewares, your categories particularly. I'm sure a lot of you are frustrated by this, where you're a high quality producer and you've got these Chinese knockoffs that are just spending infinite money to try to knock you off your perch. So that's actually starting to erode consumer trust in these channels. One way I like to think about this is imagine you could take the people in your company that know the most about your products, clone them, and put them into a physical store or into an online system where they could tell everyone that wants to learn about your products everything possible to know. And in their head, they can store not only all that product information, but every review and every piece of customer feedback, and openly share that with the customer and say, people have found that for this climate, this product's going to be a little bit better versus this one, whatever it is. So that's what this is empowering out there to the consumer. It's our job to make sure that this now trusted authority has all of our product information. And that's going to be like the key action item from this webinar. And this is the keys to your destiny are you own the product information. You as manufacturers and people that also sell direct, you know your product better than anyone, and you need to make sure that the engines know it as well as you do. So I have some more data here on trust. Okay, so that's these engines and the nice position they occupy with consumers. Let's go down a layer and look at how are consumers using them to buy things online and shop. So this has been the most fascinating data. Don can verify, but like starting in Q1, this survey started coming out saying 10% of the people have tried these to find things online, to shop. Now we're seeing it consistently pull, and again, this is stated preference, so you always have to take everything I've shown you prior to this was basically, actually data, transactional data, so it's authoritative. Here we're trying to read the tea leaves by taking a lot of stated preference data, which is always a little suspicious because people answer surveys in weird ways. But I like to triangulate. And there's no shortage of 10 polls now, the surveys that basically put us well north of 70% of consumers that are using these engines are using it in some part of the shopping journey, and it's influencing a lot of it. In fact, we hit another high water mark when Salesforce reported that for the Black Friday, Cyber Monday period, I think it was 14.7% of folks. Oh, that was just Cyber Monday. So for the whole week, 17% of transactions were touched by AI system somewhere in that transaction, be it the research part, the find, or the back end buy part. So more data to support that. So you can see here, ChatGPT leads the way with the highest concentration, and then Gemini, Perplexity, Meta, and Grok. I'll talk about them in a minute. For those people that are understand where another element to this whole thing is the what I call the captive or the on-site chatbots. So Amazon has Rufus. You'll hear me talk about Rufus. Walmart has Sparky, and Target has the super sexily named Target Shopping Assistant. They did, I think, sidebar, I think they should name that after Bullseye the dog, but for some reason they haven't really committed to this thing. They haven't held their nose and jumped in yet. So you have to work with the Target Shopping Assistant. We'll call it the TSA. So yeah, it always has a good association. And so you can see this is just a moment in time, and this is a consumer survey. And so, but you can see that when people can find Rufus and understand what it is, they have high engagement. If you actually compared this, though, it's kind of like at 8%, and ChatGPT is at 53%. So there's actually a 6 to 4x gulf in there from people using the on-site mechanisms because they've been so trained to use the old way of doing things, they're having a hard time finding the new one. I always get asked about category data, and I'm well aware of who the audience is here. And over on the left, we have a YouGov survey, and that one's from July. And the right is a little more exciting because it's more current from Morgan Stanley, and they specifically called out household products, which I appreciated. And they're basically saying, of the people that are using AI and using it to shop, what kind of category are you looking at? Also near and dear to y'all's heart is groceries, right? So when ChatGPT announced all this data that they have, it's hard to show it in a chart because it's like a 60-page paper, and we could use our whole time on that. But to summarize what ChatGPT disclosed is there's a lot of DIYers, and one of the most popular topics people have is around their household. There's a lot of power moms and power stay-at-home dads or whatnot, power parents we'll call them, and they use this a lot to run their life. I know folks that use it for all their meal prep, and they build their recipes, and it has now become this natural entry point in those conversations to then come into the commerce side. So you can see groceries number one there. And then number two, you guys are right behind it. So you're probably starting to see this in your data. Just like I mentioned with SEO, when one of these engines mentions you, it gives what's called, in search world, we have searches and traffic. Here we have prompts and citations. So you get a citation, which if the consumer is interested enough, they will click on that, and then they're free to go to your website to research. Now, because the answer is already provided, or you can shop in line, you actually, it's not a one-to-one correlation. So in the old search days, one search was basically one piece of traffic, or one search maybe resulted in 10 pieces of traffic to different brands or retailers. Today, one prompt may result in like 0.1 citation click. So, but what you're going to see is, because it's growing so fast, you're going to see this up and to the right citations, and your free organic SEO traffic is going to be down and to the right. Those are indications your products are in this. This is going on actively with your products. Okay, so that's kind of the lay of the land on what's happening with consumer behavior, both from the general standpoint and how it's impacting shopping on these engines. Now, what are the experts saying about what this is going to do to our world? PayPal CEO Alex Chriss is all in on this. They have pivoted PayPal to basically be an agentic commerce company. And he basically said by 2030, 25% of e-commerce will be driven by AI agents. So that's his line in the sand, 25% by 2030. Morgan Stanley came out with a very detailed bottom-up analysis, literally looking at every retailer, every category, rolling it up. This is an excellent report. Unfortunately, it's only available to Morgan Stanley clients. If anyone has questions on it, I can answer them, and I can share some snippets, but not the whole thing. Anyway, they basically did this really deep analysis that it's like over 100 pages, and they came up with a $380 billion number that's incremental. Which is really interesting. So we have retail and e-commerce has been kind of like, I think it's added some incrementality. We'll never know, but a lot of people view it as what percentage of retail is e-commerce, and they're saying that yes, it's going to accelerate that, but then also it's going to bring people in that aren't exactly shopping right now and get them, inspire them to buy something. And a good example is that meal prep, and I'll show you a set of prompts that are similar to that. Down there on the bottom in the left, you can see they have a bear case, a baseline case, which is where we are today, and a bull case. And the summary of this is they're very enthusiastic that agentic commerce is going to accelerate e-commerce and retail overall. And in fact, they think that by 2030, it'll be 20%. So we have Morgan Stanley at 20% and PayPal at 30%, basically. So what I realized early on thinking about this is there's a bunch of pieces to this people aren't talking about. So we came up with our own frameworks under this Retail Agentic Thought Leadership brand, and I'll share a couple of them with you. Number one, I like to track who are the participants in this and what are they up to. And so Perplexity has been involved in this. They were the earliest. They launched in November of last year. Then we have Amazon. They have Rufus. They also have a Buy For Me. So if you're a brand and you don't want your products on Amazon, I know that's a sensitive area for a lot of people. And you can actually hedge. And you can go to Amazon and say, hey, if you want your agent to send people to my site, I'm okay with that. And you can it's called Buy For Me. So there's certain brands that have decided they don't want to be on Amazon, but they want to show up and get the traffic from Amazon. So this gives you this new kind of interesting, it's not first party, it's not third party, it's not none of those things. It's basically get free traffic from Amazon today. So and it's actually their agent goes and buys on behalf of the consumer. So it'll actually come by for you, and so that's pretty interesting. ChatGPT is obviously leading the charge, Copilot and Gemini. The four that are most interesting, I'll get to in a second. And those are Apple, Anthropic, which has Claude, and Meta, which is basically the rebrand of Facebook, which includes Instagram, and Grok, which is called XAI. That's Elon Musk entry. Now, in the bottom right, I'll point out there's a Cambrian explosion of vertical shopping experiences. Most of these live in the fashion category, but it's not going to be long before I'm sure we have one in housewares. We also have a lot of people reimagining the wish list, the bridal party list, the gift list, and that kind of a thing to be agentic. And that's going to be really interesting. We've seen a lot of innovation in that space as we went from like these kind of really clunky affiliate models, and you guys may know that all these different companies that have innovated in this space. I think we're going to see another wave of innovation there, and I know you guys in this category drive a lot through those, especially through weddings, and I think that's going to be something to watch out for. Is there's going to be some killer app that's going to be the ultimate wedding list vertical app and be agentic, meaning it helps. Instead of this, you have to sort through. Your guest could say, "Hey, I only met these people once. I'm looking at something in the $100 budget," or someone that's like, "This is my goddaughter. I want to do something very meaningful. What could that look like?" And they can have this conversation with the wish list versus this kind of less, kind of almost transactional. Here's what I want, kind of an experience. So it's going to be interesting to watch that category. The other way I think about this, and I came up with this to kind of like help think through this definition problem I mentioned a minute ago, where everyone thinks we should just like jump right to this doing everything. And that's not how the world works. Consumers, they're adopting this fast, but they need to get, warm up to it. This happened in the early days of e-commerce, if you recall. eBay, I was I had a company that helped people buy and sell on eBay. We didn't have payments on there for the first like 5 or 6 years. You sent checks and money orders. It was crazy. So I liken this to the levels of autonomy of electric autonomous vehicles. So you have like traditional, nothing agentic, which is kind of ground zero, starting point on the left, and then you get over to full autonomy. And as you go, you add a piece of functionality, and it typically goes by the funnel: research, find, buy, and then advanced buy, which is where we're now bringing in things like loyalty programs, all the other like second tier considerations. But if you narrow down a product you want and you care about the payment, how fast can it get to me? What kind of loyalty points? What payment mechanism should I use to maximize my mileage points? Whatever it is that's important to you. I have kids that are in their 20s, and they have this interesting, well-documented behavior. And I'm sure Circana has opined on this at some point. They like this buy now, pay later functionality because it makes them very nervous to put a big thing on their credit card. So they want to know it's going to be split into 3 payments, and they can get that done in 2 or 3 months and get it behind them and not worry about this debt overhanging them. And I guess it's because as parents, we've ridden them so hard about having credit card debt that they want this like managed credit card system. But to them, that's an overriding decision. They like Affirm and those type of systems to pay. So every consumer is a little different, and the chats are going to really get good at helping you understand that. They'll remember everything too. They also have memory. So if you tell it one time, I really prefer for things over $100 to be on buy now, pay later, and I'm in the Affirm network, it's going to remember that, and it will automatically start highlighting that as you search. Pretty wild. So where we are today is everyone's kind of around level 3, and we just got here this year. So when I started this chart, most of the companies were at 0 or 1. So we've had a lot of activity already in 1 year. So Perplexity is actually on version 2 of their system, and they just recently redid it all at PayPal. So it's really good. And I think they're going to be one of the first ones to get over to the next tier, which is advanced buy, but we'll see. ChatGPT is working very hard on this. Then obviously ChatGPT with the launch of instant checkout, which I'm sure you guys have heard about. And that's what I showed you earlier on. Gemini just came out with this right before Cyber Monday, so that was exciting. Thanksgiving. And then Microsoft Copilot. There's a lot of rumors they would launch something by Black Friday. They did not, so they're kind of stuck on 2. The one we all watch the most closely that's stuck on 0 is Apple. Apple, this device has, it knows about me more than anything. It knows where I've been. It knows, it's got Apple Pay. I use Apple Pay a lot. I love Apple Pay. It's a very secure transaction system, and and they're very good. They've got models. They have research papers out now that are public that they can run a stripped down model on here, a whole LLM. And so it's private. So right now, when you use these models, they're in a cloud, and, presumably, anyone can see your data at these companies. And, a lot of people share these inappropriate, intimate things with these engines, and that's, you don't do that. But anyway, Apple could have a privacy, enclave, they call it, on the phone that keeps this from going out anywhere you don't want it to go. Meta obviously is going to get in this because there's, if you think about one of the top places people talk about their products, it's the social media companies, including TikTok and Instagram. And then another kind of dark horse here is Grok. And I always remember who founded PayPal. His name was Elon Musk. So all this stuff you read about Elon Musk, SpaceX, Tesla, all these companies are from him selling PayPal to eBay. So he knows a lot about payments. And then the last one is one of the early, Claude is this, Anthropic is this company where some of the early OpenAI employees left to start their own company. And they really focus in on helping people code, but they're really dominating that. I think the next vertical they may come into is shopping. We'll see. The big news this year was when ChatGPT launched their own checkout system. And this is really exciting. When we were at ChannelAdvisor, we had probably 10 companies try to do this and fail miserably. These companies were Google, Twitter, Pinterest, Instacart, Facebook, Instagram, sorry, not Instacart, and so on and so forth. And it's because they didn't take it seriously and they didn't understand the complexities of e-commerce. This is the most sophisticated checkout system I've seen in doing this, second only to maybe Amazon. So this is a very sophisticated checkout system. It's got real-time inventory checks. It has loyalty integration. It is single item, single checkout today, but they actually launched this Instacart app on ChatGPT that's multi-item. So I know that, and it uses this checkout. So this checkout is going to be multi-item for this use case. I wouldn't be shocked if it came out this year. Things are going so fast, but certainly by end of Q1, if not the end of January, we'll have a multi-cart checkout. And the other nice thing is, in this example, I'm buying something from Etsy. This is the first checkout we've seen at a marketplace-like experience. This is all happening up in ChatGPT, not on your website. But what's interesting is you are the merchant of record. So this goes through your payment system. You're the merchant of record, and it's very clear to the consumer they're buying from you. So here in this example, I'm buying an adorable plush thing that someone handmade of Yoda. And you can see here it's on Etsy. So very clear to me that it's on Etsy. And in fact, if you didn't see that, the giant pay button says Pay Etsy. So that could be your brand right there if you sell direct. If not, if you sell through retail partners, you can partner with your retail partners to influence them to sell direct. Many are, and I'll walk you through an example of that. Get involved in this and get in front of this massive billions of users that are using these systems. Let me get my mouse back. There we go. Some of the other big news items that just happened recently, I mentioned instant checkout. Shopify has embraced this. So if you're on Shopify, you get an easy on-ramp into this system. They've already pre-integrated with the data feed that has to happen and the checkout. They have a shopping research function that's really cool. That's a little too long for the demo I'm going to show you. It's a bit involved, but I encourage everyone to run your products through there and see what it recommends. I think you'll learn a lot. And then you can actually have these apps. So this is if you have an experience that maybe you want the consumer to take a picture of their table so they can see how your product looks on the table or in the kitchen. If you have like an augmented reality type situation and you've built an app, it would be good for this. Otherwise, what I'm talking about, the integrated experience is the way to go. And then Walmart launched in instant checkout on 12/1, so basically the eve of Cyber Monday. We advocate, you're going to hear a lot from people out there. There's a lot of people that have GEO. It's alphabet soup, so I apologize. I didn't invent all this. So they call it Gen AI Engine Optimization, GEO, Answer Engine Optimization, AEO, and they're basically the same thing. They're like the SEO version of optimizing for this. But they're super high level. They're even above our funnel. So they're basically, when people are even, asking a simple question like, how do you feel about your brand, like Nike or something? It's like sentiment is what I would call it. It's sentiment level information that you're working on, which is okay, but it's hard to influence it, and it is what it is, and it's not actionable. We recommend agentic commerce optimization because I'm going to show you the anatomy of this. You have a product card and offers. And because this is so new, it's frequently messed up. And you can influence that, though. You can fix the parts that are broken. There's this matching system called canonicalization that is frequently broken for a lot of products. I'll show you examples of that. And we've identified 13 problems. I won't go into them that can happen here. So we have a 9-step strategy really for this audience. If you could get through step 5, you're ahead of the game. So I think 9's a lot, but I'm going to leave you with 5 action items after I jump into a demo. Last point before I give a quick demo. All the stuff I'm going to show you, and it basically centers on you own your product catalog. every one of you has a website, I presume. And what you need to do is ChatGPT is crawling your website, and that's where it's getting the product information. So you have a direct phone line to ChatGPT with your product information called your website. You can, unfortunately, websites have been optimized for keywords because we've been at SEO for 20 years. Now we're in a world where we're optimizing for LLMs, which are these Gen AI powered AI systems, and they want more content and more context. So that's what we have to do. We've actually streamlined our content so much, we need to beef it back up. A lot of you you have these reams of product data, and you have to like really skinny it down for one little product detail page. Well, what we're saying is let's blow that out. Ideally, the engines would want like a 90-page PDF about your product. They want every piece of information they can get so they can triangulate what the consumer wants. That's hard to do, but what we can do is expand your PDP to add those things that are important and also context. So what is your houseware good for? Is there a certain meal it's perfect for? Is there a certain, is it good for the grill? Is it good for the oven? Is it better on electric? Is it better on gas? All these types of things are what consumers are asking for, and you need to provide that information on your website. And previously that didn't matter. So this is the biggest gap that exists right now that you can control, that you can fill. So that's agentic commerce optimization in a nutshell. And step one is don't block the bots. Step two is make sure your site's easily crawlable by these bots. They're not as sophisticated as Google, so they get tripped up. They don't understand JavaScript, for example. And then 3, 4, and 5 is where you can have a huge impact on this today and basically beefing up your product content. And you guys all have you're in an enviable position because a lot of retailers are struggling with this. You guys have the content. So you're in an actually good position here. And I think this gets you back. I view it as a positive because it gets you back to being able to market your products and merchandise. So let's jump into a live demo. That's a lot of ivory tower kind of stuff. Let's get real. Okay. So over here on the right, I'm logged into ChatGPT. I have a pro account, which is the paid one, but this will work for free. It'll just take forever. And then the $20 a month version as well. So in here, I'm going to say, I'm looking to make a really good, it's 15 degrees here in Raleigh, North Carolina, and it hasn't been this cold since 20 years, I think. And I was thinking this weekend it'd be fun to have everyone over. I don't want to grill. So I was like, let's make a pot roast. I've never really really invested in learning how to do this. So I'm going to ask it about that. So here I'm thinking about a meal prep, right? So I'm going in and it's telling me what you want to do is sear and braise. It tells me the cut of meat to get. It's basically going to give me an ingredient, and I could actually tell it to go build a shopping list. I'm not going to put you guys through all that. My point here is most people get to shopping through these conversations that kind of are through the side, right? So they're over here in meal prep, and then something's going to happen. Like I see that. I don't really know how, I'll be honest with you guys, and this is embarrassing in front of a Housewares group, but I don't know how to sear and braise. So, and I probably don't have the pot or whatever I'm going to need to do that. So let's figure that out. So it's telling me what to do here, and it's giving me the For Dummies version of this, which I, as a someone new to pot roasting in this way, I'm going to need to know. So it tells me how to sear. That's pretty handy. Number one, don't rush it. That's good. I probably would have rushed it. Number 3, I need to build a flavor base. Okay. I'm going to deglaze. I don't know what that is either. So it's going to tell me I'm going to braise, and then I'm going to finish like a pro. And then it's going to give me some pro tips, how to serve it and whatnot. And then it says, how do you go elite? And I will say, is there a, let's see, is there a, in there it talks about a Dutch oven. I don't know exactly what that is, but let's find out. All right, you're talking about this Dutch oven. I'm pretty sure I don't have one of those. And it's going to say, what do you want? And it tells me what a Dutch oven is and why it matters. And turns out it's good for searing and braising. How about that? And it gives me a good, better, best. So it gives me this like high end, a Le Creuset, or however you say that. I'm from North Carolina. That scares me. I can't even say it. So I'm not going to get that. And it feels like it's going to be really expensive. It's got a Staub and a Lodge. So you get 90% of it. That's like the best value. So that sounds pretty good to me. And then it gives me the modern sleek. I don't really need modern and sleek. Help me find cast iron. Let's let's see, what was that for? A Dutch oven. So I started with a recipe for a pot roast, and now I find myself shopping. This is the most common way your customers are getting into this experience. So now here I am, and I'm learning all about this particular brand, which is a Lodge cast iron Dutch oven. And I see it's got an enameled version or cast iron. Now let me give you a little anatomy lesson on this. So these are product cards. So this is a 3 product card carousel. When I hit the button, it's going to flip 3. So that's 6 and 9. So basically it's giving me 9 choices here of products to look at. And when I click on a product card, in the right-hand side, I get offers associated with that product card. So, and then I see, I don't know what you guys call them. I call them variations or variants is common, or parent-child relationships. So this one has 2 different styles, which would be color of red and blue. I actually like the red one, which is the default. So I'm a Wolfpack fan, so that ties with my collegiate alliances here in the Southeast. And then you can see here that Walmart is offering instant checkout on this item. Also, I happen to know Lodge sells directly, and they're not showing up here. This is because it's called a canonicalization problem. They actually named the product something a little different than what Walmart does, and therefore it's not mapping right. Let's go see if we can find another example of that, but actually canonicalized right. Here's one where we have Walmart and Lodge and Target all on the same one, and we can actually see more. So this one has canonicalized correctly. And as I switch through the different available things, oh, Boy Scouts. They've got a branded, if I was a Boy Scout enthusiast, that may be exciting to me. I'm not. So that's what that looks like. It's a little buggy. You can see they dropped all the other offers when I did that. That's not anyone's fault. There's no way to fix that. They will fix that. Here you can see Lodge showing up again, so on and so forth. So this is a good one. Let's look at this. So this is another good one because you've got Lodge. And look, they're not the lowest price, but they're showing up first because it's basically said, it's got an algorithm. We don't know exactly how it works, but it's basically said, in stock online, free delivery by Thursday are factors. And it has basically put that ahead of Walmart, which has the buy button lit up. Now, this is the instant checkout experience. I'm not going to buy one of these, although I'm sure it's amazing product. It's a little confused right now. This happens with live demos, but it has forgotten how to ship to me, and it's kind of lost its brain there. We'll go look at another one. Let's see. Try again. Come on, baby. Yeah, it's kind of confused here. But anyway, at this point, I would just be able to buy this. And it's very clear I'm buying it from Walmart. It says up here, sold by Walmart, so on and so forth. If it doesn't have one, I can go visit the site. And it's just going to take me there, right to the landing page. And it should line up. Let's fact check this. I get an offer. That's $59.90 over there and $59.90. So it actually was smart enough. You see the strike through pricing here? It was actually smart enough to pick up this special offer. So the crawler went and figured out that got the right price. And this is where, this is a great product detail page. And it looks like they're on Shopify, so they kind of got 2 things going for them. They could add some more information here, and it's down in here, but a lot of times the crawler can't get to this information. So, I think this is where you could add some more product information, maybe down here, and say a little bit more about the use cases. Like this would be great for a pot roast. That obviously ChatGPT got me here, but that's the kind of thing the engines really love to see in these use cases.
And Scott, some of these, this is Don, some of these place hiccups, they're going to figure this out.
Yeah, you can control a lot of it though. So it's easy. You could change I actually looked at this one where it's not getting canonicalized, and for some reason on the product detail page, they don't have the ounces in it when they picked it up. So you can actually have this metadata that's not visible by a human that gives the ChatGPT a hint that says, hey, you could call this the 5-quart one or whatever it is. Yeah.
Yeah. And just a real quick plug for a lot of the retail Agentic material that Scott's putting out. He has these kind of demos on all the platforms, including a pretty detailed one on Instacart that just came out last week, Scott. That was a really good one. And so if you're interested in these type of live demos, Scott's got a lot of that on his in his material.
Yeah, so very quick recap. You can control your destiny here. This is a huge opportunity. I think everyone should be looking at it. If anything, just to hedge against the traffic from Google going down, and you really need to start thinking about this as pretty. Everyone I talk to, this is like their number one, strategic thing going into 26. Action item, go run some prompts. I just showed you how to do it. Get the paid version. Hopefully your company will pay you for that. If not, I would invest in it personally, $20 a month, and run some prompts. Start at ChatGPT, then do Perplexity and Gemini, and see how your products are showing up. And you will get a feel, like shop like a consumer, number one. Number two, we have this framework. We're going to distribute the slides. Happy to give it to you. I talk a lot more about it on Retail Agentic. It's our gift to the community, basically saying, here, we know how to do this. We've been doing it for a year, which doesn't sound like a lot, but we're the first at this. And we know that these 9 steps will get you success. You will show up every time, you will own the product card, and you will get the order. And if you want to do instant checkout, you should look at that. If you're on Shopify, it gives you a fast route there. And then if you don't sell direct, you can partner with your retail partners. You should still do your website because that's going to influence it. But you should also partner with the Walmarts, the Targets, the wholesale clubs. Sam's is on here now, and make sure they have updated product information that's agentic commerce optimized. And then you can work on these other things I talked about. So that's kind of the nutshell of my recommendations.
Thank you, Scott. I'd like to kind of get Don and Joe engaged right now to talk a little bit specifically about where everything stands within the home and housewares industry right now. And a lot of the things Scott said, I'm still, before we get there, I'm intrigued by the one comment you've sort of concluded here with Scott, is that brands need to control their agentic commerce sort of destiny. It still seems so overwhelming. Do I have to do it for every SKU? How do I make sure my brand is one of those 3 that are showing up? I mean, how much can I control? What type of resources do I need? And you're showing me so much that's happened within the last 2 months. What's going to happen in the next 2 months?
Yeah, the stable part in all this is product data, and that's the part that I would focus on. And so hopefully that takes some of the overwhelmingness out of it. But to your point, do I do it for every SKU? I would eat the elephant in bites. Whenever something's overwhelming, start whittling away at it. And I would say, take your top 10 sellers or top 10% or 5%. Start with a number that is something you can manage. 10 SKUs. Like, what is that? What are your top 10 SKUs? And I would work on them. And then I would add another 10. And then once you start to get a little workflow going and you start to realize, then before you know it, you're through the bulk of your SKUs. And I don't think this is going to change. Having really robust, way more context and content that you provide these engines is going to be an investment that pays for itself across every engine and for years in this new world. So that's
Don, Joe,
that's the heart of the bullseye.
Why don't you step in here and see what you have some thought? I'm curious your thoughts on the whole matter.
Yeah, one piece that you kind of alluded to, and Joe and I show this every time we present, is what percent of each of the subcategories are online versus in store. This is going to happen first online. And so as you were talking about eating the elephant in bites, Scott, it's your online e-commerce business and top of funnel research that is probably the place to start. Especially
I think people start showing up in the store educated by it too. So it's going to have an omni-channel impact, but you're transactionally, it's absolutely going to happen online first.
Yeah, Joe, I have like an hour's worth of questions, but let me let you weigh in here.
I'll go ahead. Well, I think one of the comments that I had was just how important it is that we write these things in consumer language as much as we can, as opposed to the personal language. Scott, I guess the one question I do have, are there certain age groups, demographics that are using this more than others at this moment?
Yeah, the data in its survey data, so again, a little grain of salt there, but it kind of triangulates that the younger generations are faster to adopt this, just like you would kind of guess. So you've got the Gen Zs, the Gen Alphas, the Gen Zs, the Millennials are they're way ahead of the curve. And then you've got your Gen Xers, which I'm a Gen Xer, and then you've got the the laggards are the baby boomers, and then the greatest generation. I don't think they're really involved in it, but they're catching up really fast. The slope of that was, there was like a 50-point difference, and now it's like maybe a 15-point difference. So people are really catching up to it.
Yeah. So Scott, I was looking at some research over the weekend on which industries are adopting Agentic. In other words, current players doing commerce or a service. How open are they to these AI bots coming in? And let's talk about the elephant in the room. I mean, there are particular retailers that are completely closed to these bots coming in and Agentic searching its product catalog, its pricing, its reviews. Can you talk a little bit about that and where you think that's going to be a year from now?
Yeah, Amazon has taken the strategy that they're going to not allow any of the bots. So they actually actively block them. And they basically said, we're not going to participate in this at all. And it's actually a valid strategy from a game theory perspective. From a customer's perspective, I'm not sure it's going to work. We'll see. The jury's out. Now, Andy Jassy, just in their third quarter earnings call, which was recently, said that they're actively looking at this and are going to announce something soon. So we'll kind of see what they do there. I suspect we'll see them dabble with Zappos. That's one of their subsidiaries they like to do some experimentation with. It's in shoes, so I don't think it'll impact you guys. But right now, you will not see a single product. Even in that example I just walked you through, you never saw Amazon there. The one exception is for some reason, their products are listed on Copilot. So I think they were sharing product data with Bing and still do. And I think that is showing up in Copilot through the Bing data feed. But they're not on Perplexity. They're not in ChatGPT, so on and so forth.
There's a question, and I know we're going to run out of time. I just want to let you know we're going to continue to cover this topic, and there will be more educational programming from the IHA on this going forward. And I wish we had 3 hours today. But one of the questions that's interesting in our chat is, what if you're a mom and pop? How do you gain visibility as an independent retailer and making sure you're in that sort of ChatGPT ether, if you will? We're talking a lot about big retailers, big platforms right now.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time. One of the first examples I showed you is Etsy, and Etsy is a lot of handmade, very specialty retailers that are selling online. So your power as a mom and pop is your ability, the selection that you can put together for your store. And if you have a website, then it's probably being crawled by one of these engines, and you can put your inventory on there. So in a way, this like levels the playing field because it's not advertising driven, which requires, the big companies are spending hundreds of thousands, if not millions a month to show up on Amazon and all these other places. You now have a new thing that's leveled the field for a while. So I actually think this is a big opportunity for that small business to get out there and get their products in front of people.
Yeah, Peter, if I can take that one step further, and I'd like for Scott to weigh in on this. I get asked a lot, who are the winners out of this? I really stay out of who are the losers, but who are the winners? I think any product that the consumer loves and may not be fully aware of how many consumers love it, I think that is just poised for growth. Because, Scott, one of the things that you and I have talked about a little bit is one of the new pieces that's going to just be amplified is when consumers review a product and say how great it is.
Yeah, absolutely.
The AI engine is going to highly weight that in what they come back and recommend to you. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, one of the biggest influencers, Peter, you asked, how do I show up number one on that offer list? And the answer is having a great product. So there's many factors. We know reviews are a big one and probably the biggest. I would probably weight it at 50%. And you can actually give ChatGPT your reviews. This is another thing that frustrates challenger brands is no one can see my 8,000 5-star reviews, and they're so awesome. And people are talking about me all over, but I can't show up on Amazon for some reason because I'm not paying the fees to kind of show up. So this levels that playing field. So having a great product, and you saw with the Lodge example, really, really talk about your offers. Like, this is going to be fast shipping. I can get it to you by this date. So a lot of smaller challenger brands can lean in on the service element of what they can provide too. And it's taking all that into consideration versus just, all right, I grease the skids with a big ad dollar buy.
Right.
We're going to have to wrap up shortly. Scott, did you have a slide that shows people how to reach out to you? Can you throw that up there?
Yeah, I'll throw that up there.
We will be sharing this presentation with attendees, and we'll include contact information. And I think, Scott's okay if we share the actual presentation with our attendees as well. I wish we had more time to go over this. I think there's a lot of questions still to be asked. We're going to try to get to those questions over the next several weeks, months, and we know things are going to change a lot between now and even the Inspired Home Show in March. Scot Wingo, thank you so much from ReFiBuy. Don Unser and Joe Derochowski from our friends at Circana. Folks, send questions my way as well, too, if you want. I know we didn't get to a lot of them today. We will get back to you soon, and I'm expecting pretty much to have a follow-up seminar, webinar, or 2 or 3 or 4 as we go forward here. This is the year AI became a reality to all of us in this industry, and I thank everyone on our panel today for helping us get started and thinking about it. For Peter, for Homepage News and the International Housewares Show, I'm Peter Giannetti. Thanks everyone for attending, and we'll see you real soon. Have a happy holiday season. Bye-bye now.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Thank you.